From the misty realms of ancient Britain emerges a legend, a tale whispered through generations. It speaks of a noble king, a valiant warrior, a man named Arthur. Arthur, the once and future king, embodies courage, chivalry, and wisdom. But who was the real King Arthur? Was he a flesh and blood ruler who defended his people from invaders? Or was he a figment of imagination, a mythical hero born from the collective desires of a people longing for a savior? The legend of King Arthur is a tapestry woven from history, myth, and folklore. Join us as we journey back in time to explore the enigmatic world of King Arthur. Our quest for the historical Arthur takes us to the twilight zone between fact and fiction. Some historians believe that Arthur was a real figure, a Romano-British warlord who fought against the invading Saxons in the late 5th and early 6th centuries AD. They point to scant historical records that mention a powerful warrior named Arthur who led the Britons in several battles. Others argue that Arthur is a composite figure, an amalgamation of different historical and legendary characters. The lack of conclusive archaeological evidence further complicates the matter. Despite the lack of concrete proof, the search for the historical Arthur continues. The question of Arthur's existence may never be definitively answered, but perhaps the more important question is why his legend has endured for so long. Arthur's story speaks to our deepest desires for justice, for courage in the face of adversity, and for a world where good triumphs over evil. Moreover, the Arthurian legend has had a profound impact on Western literature, art, and culture. From the works of Geoffrey Chaucer to the films of John Boorman, Arthur and his knights have inspired countless creative works. The legacy of King Arthur extends far beyond the realm of entertainment. Our journey into the heart of Arthurian legend takes us to the rugged landscapes of ancient Britain. Here, amidst the crumbling ruins of Roman forts and the weathered stones of ancient burial mounds, we search for tangible traces of the legendary king. In the west of England, nestled amidst the rolling hills of Somerset, lies the enigmatic site of Cadbury Castle. This Iron Age hill fort, with its commanding views, has long been associated with Camelot, the legendary seat of Arthur's court. Excavations at Cadbury Castle have revealed evidence of extensive fortifications and a thriving settlement dating back to the Arthurian period. Further north, in the wild landscapes of Wales, lie the ruins of Tintagel Castle, steeped in Arthurian lore. These ancient sites serve as poignant reminders that the world of King Arthur, whether real or imagined, was deeply rooted in the landscapes and history of Britain. While archaeologists piece together fragments of the past, historians pore over ancient texts, searching for clues within the brittle pages of chronicles and annals. One such source is the Historia Brittonum, a 9th century Latin chronicle attributed to a Welsh monk named Nennius. Another important source is the Annals Cambriae, or Annals of Wales, a 10th century chronicle that records the history of Wales from the 5th to the 10th centuries. The Annals Cambriae mention Arthur in connection with the Battle of Barden, a decisive victory attributed to the Britons over the Saxons. These early chronicles provide tantalizing hints about a possible historical Arthur, a warrior leader who emerged during a time of great turmoil and conflict. The name Arthur itself adds another layer of intrigue to our investigation. One theory suggests that it derives from the Roman name Artorius, which was not uncommon in Roman Britain. Another theory proposes that Arthur originates from the Celtic word Artos, meaning bear, a powerful symbol in Celtic mythology. Yet another possibility is that Arthur was not a personal name at all, but rather a title or epithet. Each potential origin story adds a new dimension to our understanding of the man who may have inspired the legend. From the fragments of historical evidence and the linguistic analysis of his name, a compelling image of the historical Arthur begins to emerge. Many historians now believe that, if he existed, Arthur was most likely a warlord, a skilled and charismatic military leader who rose to prominence during the tumultuous period following the Roman withdrawal from Britain. This period, often referred to as the Dark Ages, was a time of great upheaval and uncertainty. The native Britons, facing the loss of their land and way of life, fiercely resisted these incursions. It is within this context of invasion, resistance and cultural clash that the figure of Arthur the Warlord takes shape. The Warlord Theory aligns with the earliest historical mentions of Arthur, which portray him as a fierce and successful military commander. Arthur, whether real or a product of collective imagination, fulfilled the need for a hero perfectly. Our quest to separate the historical Arthur from the legendary one leads us to a pivotal figure, Geoffrey of Monmouth. In the 12th century, Geoffrey penned Historia Regum Britanniae, or The History of the Kings of Britain. Geoffrey's Historia is a captivating blend of historical fact, folklore, and outright invention. It is within the pages of Geoffrey's Historia that we first encounter many of the iconic elements of the Arthurian legend as we know it today. Geoffrey's Historia was a runaway success, quickly becoming a literary sensation throughout Europe. It was translated into numerous languages and widely read, cementing Arthur's status as a legendary hero. While Geoffrey of Monmouth played a pivotal role in popularizing the Arthurian legend, he was not alone in shaping the narrative. Throughout the Middle Ages, poets, troubadours and romancers across Europe contributed to the ever-evolving tapestry of Arthurian tales. These medieval storytellers, inspired by Geoffrey's Historia, further embellished the Arthurian legend, adding new characters, adventures and themes. The Knights of the Round Table, originally mentioned in passing in earlier accounts, took center stage in these medieval romances. The quest for the Holy Grail, a sacred relic imbued with mystical powers, became a central motif in many Arthurian romances. Through these medieval interpretations, the Arthurian legend evolved into a rich and complex tapestry, reflecting the values and ideals of the age. As the Arthurian legend spread throughout Europe, it was adapted and reinterpreted to suit the tastes and beliefs of different cultures. In France, Arthurian romances flourished, with poets like Chrétien de Troyes emphasizing themes of courtly love, chivalry and adventure. In Germany, Wolfram von Eschenbach's epic poem, Parzival, explored the spiritual and philosophical dimensions of the Grail quest. The Arthurian legend also found a home in Italy, where writers like Ludovico Ariosto and Torquato Tasso incorporated Arthurian characters and themes into their own epic poems. Each generation has found something compelling and relevant in the legend, adapting it to reflect its own values and concerns. The quest for the historical Arthur continues to this day, with historians, archaeologists and literary scholars engaging in lively debates about his existence and significance. Some scholars, often referred to as Arthurian skeptics, maintain that there is insufficient historical evidence to support the existence of a real King Arthur. They argue that the earliest sources that mention Arthur are too fragmentary, contradictory or chronologically distant from his supposed lifetime to be considered reliable. These skeptics suggest that Arthur may have been a purely mythical figure from the outset, his legend woven from Celtic folklore, Christian allegory and the collective imagination of a people yearning for a hero. They point to the lack of conclusive archaeological evidence such as a royal burial site or artifacts unequivocally linked to Arthur, as further evidence to support their skepticism. Like the Knights of Arthur's legendary Round Table, these modern-day scholars bring their own perspectives and interpretations to the table, each seeking to unravel the mysteries of the past. The skeptics raise valid points, highlighting the challenges of reconstructing a historical narrative from such fragmentary and often contradictory sources. They argue that the absence of contemporary accounts of Arthur's life and reign, coupled with the tendency for legends to embellish and distort historical figures, casts serious doubt on his existence as a real historical figure. Furthermore, they point to the proliferation of Arthurian legends in different cultures and time periods, each with its own unique spin on the story, as evidence of the malleable nature of myth and the tendency for fictional narratives to evolve and adapt over time. The skeptics emphasize the importance of approaching historical sources with a critical eye, distinguishing between evidence-based accounts and those that rely on hearsay, embellishment, or outright invention. They remind us that the absence of evidence does not necessarily equate to the evidence of absence, but it does warrant a cautious and measured approach to historical claims, especially those shrouded in myth and legend. Arthurian believers argue that while the historical evidence for Arthur may be circumstantial, it is compelling enough to warrant serious consideration. They point to Arthur's role as a military leader who fought against the Saxons and his association with the Battle of Badon. The lack of a single, definitive historical source does not necessarily invalidate Arthur's existence. They emphasize the challenges of preserving historical records from this period. Archaeological evidence, while not conclusive, suggests a historical context aligning with Arthurian narratives. Sites like Cadbury Castle and Tintagel suggest these places held significance long before Geoffrey of Monmouth. The debate surrounding King Arthur's historicity is ultimately a matter of interpretation, a weighing of evidence, and a consideration of the complexities of historical reconstruction. The lack of a smoking gun, a definitive piece of evidence that proves or disproves Arthur's existence, leaves room for both skepticism and belief. It is important to acknowledge that history is not always neat and tidy, and the further back in time we journey, the murkier the waters become. The quest for the historical Arthur reminds us that the past is not a fixed and immutable entity, but rather a tapestry woven from fragments of evidence, interpretation, and imagination. Whether Arthur was a real king, a composite figure, or a purely mythical creation, his story continues to fascinate and inspire us, inviting us to grapple with questions of identity, leadership, and the enduring power of myth. So, the question remains, was King Arthur real? Did a noble leader named Arthur truly rally the Britons against invaders? The evidence, as we've seen, is inconclusive. Tantalizing hints surface in ancient chronicles and weathered stones, yet concrete proof remains elusive, lost to the mists of time. Perhaps we will never know for certain whether Arthur walked among us, but perhaps the answer itself is less important than the questions Arthur's story continues to provoke. The fascination with King Arthur speaks to our need for heroes and stories that embody our hopes. We seek anchors in the past, figures who embody courage, integrity, and compassion. Arthur represents these ideals. He is the embodiment of the chivalric ideal. The Arthurian legend transcends time and culture. Arthur's story has inspired countless works of art, literature, and music. Each generation reinterprets the Arthurian legend, finding new meaning in its themes. The image of Arthur's court at Camelot, a place of unity, honor, and chivalry, holds a particular allure even today. It represents an ideal of leadership and societal harmony that continues to resonate in our modern world, often characterized by division and conflict. Camelot, in the popular imagination, is a place where differences are celebrated, where knights from all walks of life gather around the round table to share their wisdom and work towards a common goal. It is a vision of a society where justice prevails, where the strong protect the weak, and where the pursuit of honor and virtue guides every action. Of course, even in the most romanticized versions of the Arthurian legend, Camelot is not without its flaws. Betrayal, ambition, and the corrosive nature of power threaten to undermine Arthur's noble vision from within. Yet the enduring appeal of Camelot lies in its aspirational quality. It represents a yearning for a better world, a society built on principles of justice, compassion, and cooperation. It is a reminder that, even in the face of adversity and human fallibility, the pursuit of a more just and equitable world is a worthy endeavor. The legend of King Arthur, much like the king himself, is often described as once and future. It is a story that has been told and retold for centuries, evolving with each retelling, yet always retaining its core elements of courage, honor, and the struggle for a better world. As long as we continue to grapple with questions of identity, purpose, and the nature of good and evil, the legend of King Arthur will continue to resonate. It is a story that speaks to something deep within the human spirit, a yearning for heroes, for meaning, and for the enduring power of hope. So, as we conclude our exploration of the world of King Arthur, let us remember that the search for truth is often as valuable as the truth itself. And let us carry with us the enduring lessons of the Arthurian legend, the importance of courage, the power of unity, and the unwavering belief that, even in the darkest of times, a brighter future is always possible.